Hi, it's Alex Cosper here at the American River for another Riverside Chat for SacTV.com. I want to take a minute to explain my website, SacTV. It's basically it's like an archive of videos of Sacramento, a lot of interviews with local people, and just a lot of local scenery on video. So the reason I did it was because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of choices in Sacramento for local media, or to find out more about Sacramento, like is it a cool place to live? And from where I am right now, I'm actually at the Watt Avenue Bridge, and it's got some cool hangout places here, and it's the natural part of the river. Once you get more downtown, even midtown, at like Sutter's Landing, starts to become a cement sideshow. In other words, it's like a concrete jungle. It's a man-made river to connect with the Sacramento River to make sure that the American River doesn't empty into downtown like it used to. Back in the 1860s, there was a serious flood, and after that they extended the American River to connect with the Sacramento River, and then there really weren't any major floods like that anymore. But it's interesting to look at nature, weather, history. You know, it's good to know your local history. Have there ever been earthquakes in Sacramento? Not really, not for a long time at least. And recorded history, there's been little tremors felt from other areas, but we're really not on any major fault line. And the San Francisco quake of 1906 was not felt dramatically here, nor was the 1989 Bay Area quake. I remember it being at the radio station Quad, and we were like on the second floor of the building across from Cal Expo that used to be called the Bank of Alex Brown, that some of my people at Quad would call the Bank of Alex Cosper. But it was, I didn't feel anything during that quake. And, but what's interesting is the next day, I was on the radio that night, overnight. And so I kept checking another station, which was, 810 KGO San Francisco, for news updates on the quake. And I just kept hearing the Ray Taliaferro show, and I liked it a lot, and he became kind of like my favorite guy on the radio, the overnight guy on KGO in San Francisco for many years, although he died a few years ago, kind of mysteriously. But he was like the most liberal, left-wing, radical voice I heard on the radio ever. The radio is limited in how radical it gets. It's very corporate, and KGO was owned by ABC Radio at the time, so they weren't ever radical. But they let radicals like him talk overnight. And he had like the biggest audience of all of those people there at KGO. That's what it seemed like when I went to one of their like events at the Moscone Center in San Francisco. They had all their hosts there talking to a live audience. And it seemed like Ray, the overnight guy, got the loudest applause. And so that was always inspiring to me, that someone like that, and he worked in city government, like in many ways, very socially active, But I called in on his show several times and recorded it, and I put bits and pieces of it on YouTube. So that gets us all the way back to my website, sactv.com. It actually includes some San Francisco stuff on there. But the main focus is Sacramento, particularly the local music scene. And I've gone back and listened to a lot of music so that I come up with like a monthly song of the month of someone from Sacramento. And I've been doing this now for 2 years, since 2022. So it's building up a substantial list, like a local top 50. And this is what I consider like the best music I've found out of Sacramento. So if you go to sactv.com, you'll see that one of the top videos is the local spotlight, and then you could click a link to see what I found in the past to put on that, to make up this growing body of an archive of local music. And speaking of that, I'm working on my own local music. I have an album it was supposed to come out at the end of this year. I'm gonna have to rush it if it does now. Not that I've been a slacker, it's just taking longer than I thought to record. Certain types of songs require like a elaborate production, whereas others don't really. Just song, and if it's just a lyric and melody mainly, then it doesn't really need elaborate production. It could be an acoustic song. But if it's very intense, like has bass lines, keyboard lines, all that stuff, drums, then it starts to sound like a band. That's why I came up with a kind of a band name for it, Sunsetrip. So that'll be the next Sunsetrip album coming out soon, either end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025. The album is going to be called Time Tunnels, and it'll be a journey through time, kind of like adventures of the past century in America. Exploring American pop culture and how it intertwines with politics and economics and other things. So it's kind of what I poured a lot of research into. It's like a combination of all the stuff I've researched as a writer the past like 15 years. I've been writing for not necessarily as an author, but as kind of a website content developer for several websites, spanning like 25 different industries. I hope it means something to other people, but it does touch on some of the deep stuff people have explored themselves the past 20 years in the YouTube era. And I do watch a lot of YouTube videos. I don't watch much mainstream media, but which I call big dumb media, because they've told us so much wrong information. But I do research it as part of my one of the things I'm fascinated with, part of the research I do for books like Time Tunnels coming up. Time Tunnels is a book and an album. And the book, it'll start out as online for free. Anyone could read it. And then if it turns into something more than that, I'll let you know, but it could. But anyway, it's like I like studying different facets of pop culture, music mainly, but I like looking at the economy and seeing what are people buying, what are they committing their money to, and that's hilarious to me sometimes. At first I would study like music sales, record sales, and then from there I became interested in other types of products. Not for me, I don't want to buy any of these products, but I like to know, okay, what is society interested in? What are they committing money to, and why? And it's usually due to some marketing campaign more than some underground grassroots uprising. That's very rare when that happens. Almost all trends in music came from big labels portraying them as street trends. But you'd have to go way back to say, okay, what are the roots of folk music, gospel music, R&B, blues, rock? You have to go way back to start exploring those roots. And those do have organic roots, those forms of music. But once you get from the 1950s on, almost everything is this deliberate trend. So that's kind of one of the themes I want to talk about in my book, Time Tunnels, and talk about the differences between trends and actual grassroots movements. You know, like progressivism is thought to be grassroots, but there are some big corporations involved with progressivism, but not kind of how grassroots thinkers think. I mean, one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of people don't realize that the progressive movement is very minimalized in America. I've studied the progressive movement for over a century, and it used to be a lot bigger than it is now. Like 25% of the population used to kind of rally around progressives in America. And that number has diminished to where you look at the 2024 election and Jill Stein got slightly less than 1% of the vote. So if progressivism were really happening, I think she would have gotten a lot more votes than that. But the reason she didn't is because big dumb media didn't give her much media attention. Why? Because she doesn't, and the Green Party don't spend much money on big dumb media, or anything for that matter. They don't raise enough money to compete with the two major parties who save up billions and spend billions on media. Kamala Harris spent like $1 billion on media, and some of that was like giving $1 million to her friend Beyonce for an appearance. But it all added up to nothing because Trump spent less. He didn't use just his own money, of course. He had backers, and he didn't come close to $1 billion, I don't think, but they didn't spend as much as Harris and still won. Normally, whoever spends the most in big dumb media is who the electoral victor is. Locally in Sacramento, they finally announced that Kevin McCarty was the winner of the Sacramento mayor's race. So congratulations to him. He's a 5th District Assembly member. He defeated Dr. Flo, who conceded defeat, and it was like 50 to 49%. What I want to say is I did some further research on the Sacramento mayor's office, and I found out that the mayor actually makes like $164,000 a year. That sounds like a lot, but that's nothing compared to what the city manager makes. The city manager, Howard Chan, makes $400,000 a year. And he's the one who gets to set the budget. So he submits it to the city council, and then they vote on things based on the budget he submits. So anyway, the city manager actually has more power than the city mayor, who's elected, whereas the city manager is unelected. But the city manager is appointed by the city council. San Francisco has a strong mayor. That means she does have veto power, and she has decision-making power in San Francisco. That's London breed. She makes $300,000. That's less than the Sacramento city manager, who makes $400,000, but more than the Sacramento mayor. But she also makes more than the California governor. I found out Gavin Newsom, his salary is $205,000 per year. So that's interesting that the Sacramento city manager makes twice as much as the California governor. And he was actually going to make more money because they had like a secret, unethical, unauthorized meeting. I guess it was illegal too, to give him a $20,000 raise. It was you're not supposed to have secret meetings according to the Brown Act, which Mayor Darrell Steinberg apologized for on video.
I owe the community an apology for allowing the matter to be heard at the holiday period of time when it was a violation of the Brown Act. It's too much in light of his current compensation and in light of the situation that the city finds itself in terms of the deficit. It's the wrong appearance.
And with that, for now, Chan's base pay will remain $400,000 a year.
So yeah, they tried to sneak in a unauthorized raise for the city manager, and they decided just to say, no, forget it, we're not going to do that. So anyway, that's what's going on in the background in Sacramento government. I found out, it's actually not that hard to create a city ordinance in Sacramento. Say if the city really needed something and the city council agreed with you, all you would need is 5 of the 8 votes. And the mayor is the 9th vote. The mayor has the same kind of power as city council members. But yeah, it only takes 5 votes to pass a city ordinance in Sacramento. Well, that's enough for now. That's a lot of information. It's gonna get colder here at the river the rest of the year probably, and early next year, so I won't be doing as many Riverside chats for a while. Probably be doing more studio chats from my recording studio, where I'll be recording the album Time Tunnels, which is an album full of info tunes, and that's a genre I'm working on building, in which songs provide useful information. So we'll talk again soon here at the American River for another Riverside chat.